Well, it's part of my privilege to introduce our next speaker. If you spend any time with me, you'll learn two things right away. I'm terrified of birds, and I am a passionate Floridian. Now, Geneva likes analogies. I like proverbs. So one of them goes like this: do good to those who deserve it when it's in your power to act. You guys deserve everything good that Florida has to offer, okay? And one of those is Reverend Pete Jackson, who's here from Jacksonville, Florida, to speak to us today. I had the opportunity to meet and work with Pete when I was on assignment in Jacksonville, Florida some years ago with the Department of Labor. I was working on reentry initiatives. But at that time, I met Pete that he was working in the mayor's office of faith-based and community partnerships. Now, that was one of the first times for me that I knew that a city was actually establishing its own office committed to these kinds of things. But before establishing that office, Pete had been involved in efforts. He serves as the senior minister to Westside Church of Christ in the heart of Jacksonville. His community involvement includes a lot of things, including affordable housing, establishing early learning centers, coalition building, bringing together the governments and social service providers and nonprofit organizations to work together on these issues. These are some of the things that you see listed in his bio. And what I found really interesting is that he has degrees in engineering and marriage and family counseling. I'd like to see the syllabus that put those two things together. But who better to help rebuild and form and strengthen a family than an engineer? But those are the things that you see, as I said before, in his bio. All you have to do is spend a few minutes with Pete, and then you begin to see and hear his heart. He has a love for these initiatives, a love for family and community, and a love for building partnerships very similar to what we have going on here. So it's my privilege to introduce to you the Reverend Pete Jackson from Jacksonville, Florida.
Good morning. I'm not sure I know who she was talking about. I have had the pleasure and the honor of working with families all my life. And I've come to know at an experiential level the very things that David was talking about. I'm honored to be here. And let me say that with the fullness of my heart. The work that you are doing is critical to the success of this nation. We spend a great deal of time talking about the economy, about revamping the health system. We talk about all kinds of challenges that this country is facing. But I'm one who believes that there is no challenge more serious than healing our nation by healing our families. And there is no role more serious than that of fathers. One of the great challenges before us is that we are facing a nation of boys and girls who don't know what being a woman or a man is all about. And unfortunately, this dynamic is in place because many men grew up without fathers, and so they don't know how to teach their sons how to be men. And as I look at the list of those of you who are here, as I view your faces, I can tell you with all of my heart, I'm humbled to be in your presence, because I believe that you are doing the work that will define whether America is a great country from all of its aspects or just a leader in certain aspects. So I thank you for this privilege. I thank you with all of my heart for the opportunity to share with you some words and thoughts that perhaps will challenge you to keep doing what you're doing and to do it at an increasingly higher level of proficiency. To challenge you that no matter what the obstacles that you face, no matter what barriers are in place before you, that the passion that resides in you will propel you to work through those things and to come out on the other side and to be able to look back and say, yeah, job well done. I'm honored at the invitation to be here, and I pray that, excuse me, I'm a preacher, so y'all understand that, okay? I pray that the things that we share together on this morning will be words and thoughts and concepts and precepts that you will take with you when you go home, and that you will allow that energy to cause you to reassess and reevaluate what you're doing, and to not be discouraged if you're not there yet, but to keep on working until you have generations that give you credit for helping them to start all over again. I want to introduce you to someone. She is a lady that I have loved since college. We have been married 42 years in November. And I don't suggest to you that all those 42 years were easy, but they've been good. I'm going to ask my wife, Marcia, if you would stand, please, so that I got her from the cradle. This thing that we do is serious stuff. You will not always get the credit you deserve. You will not always be paid as much as you need to be paid for this work that you're doing. You have made sacrifice after sacrifice. You go to bed at night, and it's difficult for you sometimes to bend over and take off your shoes. You have toiled mentally, physically, and spiritually. And sometimes I don't doubt for a moment that you question as to whether or not it has been worth it. But just when things seem most dismal, you think about a smile that you saw when all you saw before were frowns. You remember a person that you talked to and you gave them advice, and whereas they had been fixed in hopelessness, you see their shoulders straighten and their heads lift and a light come on in their eyes that tells you that everything that you have done has been worth it. You see the smile break on a child's face because they have finally engaged someone who has communicated to them that you are loved and valued and appreciated for being a person and for having potential. You work hard to provide resources that will help challenged families and children to overcome their obstacles and to soar as eagles. You may not always get the thanks that you deserve, but one day somebody will call you on the phone and tell you, because of what you said, because of what you did, because of sacrifices that you made, I'm a better person. And whereas I thought that I was headed for failure and disappointment in my life, something that you said and you did helped me to know that I am a person of value and worth and substance. And I just wanted to take a moment to call you back and to tell you, thank you for being you. I think you need to give yourself a round of applause. We have come to a time in our existence as a people, a human people, beyond language and place of origin and culture, when all of us face a common challenge. David just got through talking about that. We talk much about recession, healthcare revision. We talk about declining markets, energy and oil depletion. We talk about waste. We talk about preserving the environment, and yet we don't talk about the thing that is most essential, because as successful as a country or a nation can become, if the families and children and fathers in those countries are not effective and successful in doing the job that God has called them to do, that nation will not stay on top very long. You are the people who are working at the undergirding of this society. You are the people who wake up every morning with an excitement on your heart because you know that today I'm going to face and engage someone who needs to hear a word of encouragement. You are the people who stand between success and failure of families and children and fathers. You are the ones who have decided that if nobody else does this work, if I never get paid a dime for doing this work, I have come too far and done too much, and I understand that God has called me to a unique destiny and purpose for my existence, and so if nobody ever says thank you, I'm going to do this work because it is my calling and it is my destiny. There's a concept in Scripture, and I'm not trying to convert anybody. I don't think. There's a concept in Scripture that essentially says to us that we serve a supreme being who is all-knowing and all-powerful and everywhere at the same time. And if that concept is viable, if it is true, it communicates to us a perspective that we all need to engage. It essentially says to us that there is a supreme being who sees all, who knows all, who is everywhere at the same time. And in the supreme being, there's no sense of time. But he or she, as one of my friends calls her, is able to look at everything as if it is now. And I would suggest to us that where you are now, as you work at your calling, as you work at your destiny, where you are now is not an accident. Somewhere down the stream of time, our supreme being, whom I call God, and you may call Jehovah or Allah or Buddha or some other thing that's germane to your culture, but this supreme being looks at time and space as if it is the same perspective. And I would suggest to you this morning that somewhere in this perspective of the supreme being who is all-powerful, who is all-knowing, who is everywhere at the same time, he saw you. And destined for you, a unique role and a unique purpose for being that says that when the time is right, you will come into existence and you will be born into a time and space and location where you have a job to do that only you can do. As you reflect about your own life, there have been circumstances and situations and conditions that have shaped and molded you and has given you a perspective that is unique to you. You could be somewhere else doing something else and probably making a lot more money than you're making. But somehow, as you reflect on your past, you can see the eventualities of your life, and you now begin to understand that I have been uniquely formed and shaped and fixed so that when my time and my destiny has come to the stage of existence, that everything will have worked together to equip and prepare me to fulfill a unique calling. It is no accident that somewhere in your life you did something else. It is no accident that somewhere in your life you had some trauma. It is no accident that you experienced some pain and discomfort. And if you are sure of who you are and where you are, it is no accident that those events have uniquely shaped you so that you have a unique sensitivity to people around you. And you can speak to them in a language that you understand, that they will understand when you say what you say to them, because you have been placed in time and space to fulfill a unique destiny. This word that I'm speaking of suggests to us in the book of Isaiah that God has chosen you in the furnace of affliction, and that in that furnace there are some things that transformed you. The things that were rough and useless were burnt off and was crystallized in you a unique purpose, a unique sense of destiny, a unique calling. And when you came out of that furnace, the events of your lives have prepared you to do the work that you are doing right now. Let me assure you that only you can do what you are doing. Everybody can't speak this language. And everybody has not had the experiences that help them to be sensitive to the clients that you are serving. And so as you step into time and space, as you have been called into your existence, please understand this, that you have a purpose and a destiny that is unique to you. And we all need to understand that. Because if you didn't know it, this country is having challenges that are more than economic and social and relational. If we are not careful, and if we are not vigilant to the purpose for which we have called, to the destiny that we have been prepared for, if we are not those who have resolved to stick to it no matter what happens, sooner or later, this country will disintegrate. And while we may be the most powerful country on the world and the richest country on the world, if our families and if our fathers and mothers do not function as they were designed to function, this country that we all love and value will soon fade off of the world stage. So you have been called to a destiny. You have experienced things, and you have engaged those challenges with a spiritual selflessness and commitment. Because of what you have been through, you have a keen sense of discernment. You don't have to tell me But I know that most of you can look at a mom or a dad or a teenager in trouble, and because of what you've been through, you can identify. And when you approach them, you can speak to them in language that communicates to them, I really deeply care about you, and I am concerned about your fate, and I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to help you to fulfill your potential. You don't have to tell me that. Because you see, if you didn't feel like that, you would be doing some other kind of work. But you are here because you have a calling. And I want you to understand that. You are here because you have been called to do this work. And so in your destiny, boy, if I could really preach this morning, I ain't going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it. What characterizes your life is a word that the Bible says is love. Charis. Now that is not a love of emotion. That is not a love of appreciation for your fellow man. That is a love that says, if you tell me what you need, I care enough about you and your future that I will do what you say you need me to do just because you ask it. That is the kind of love that makes the difference in people's lives. I believe that men ought to have that kind of love for other men. I believe that those of us who have been through some things and understand what real manhood is about ought to be able to call a younger brother to the table and say to that younger brother, young man, it's not enough for you to be a father, you need to be a dad. And when he asked us, what does that mean? That means, son, that you need to provide and protect your sons and your daughters. You need to be the first one that tells your daughter she's beautiful. You need to be the first one that buys your daughter flowers, and when you buy your daughter flowers, you need to order some for her mama too. You need to be the one that takes her to the jewelry store and tells her to pick out whatever it is that she wants, and you need to be the one that takes that necklace or ring or bracelet and places it around her neck, on her finger, around her wrist. Because you see, if you don't do it, somebody who wants to use and abuse her will buy her the bling and convince her that she's loved. You know, I bought my daughters their first bouquet of flowers. I bought them their first ring. I took them on their first date. And any young man who came to my house to take them out, I told him when he came in, look, sit down, I need to talk to you. And what I said to them was this: if you can't take my daughter out of here and bring her back here the same way you left here with her, you can't take her out at all. And if you get confronted by someone with a knife or gun while you're on the street, I expect you to die so that she can live. That may be why they're not married today. They're 41 and 40, and I still don't have no grandkids. We lost our son last year this time. I was supposed to be here. But there was not a day that went by that I didn't grab him by his head and tell him, boy, I love you, and I will do anything for you. I was the one who taught him how to make a bookshelf, how to work on a car, how to cut a yard. I was the one who told him that your job, son, is any girl that you love, you need to protect her. And you need to protect her reputation. You don't need to put her in situations where people will question what you're doing with her. If you take her out and y'all under threat, you need to die. You need to protect her. That's what David meant when he says, men, we can't be satisfied with being fathers. We've got to be daddies. And when we do that, the residual effect will be this. Our daughters won't hook up with young men and become pregnant. If we do that, our young men will not misuse and abuse women because they respect their mother and they respect their sisters, and therefore they respect women in general. I'm going to get a sign in a minute, and I know that. Let me say something to you, and I want you to hear me. And I'm not trying to insinuate anything. I want all of us in this room to understand that we are frontline soldiers. We stand between the enemy and our society. And there's no time for soldiers on the front line to be in competition with each other. You hear what I'm saying? It's not about competing. It's about collaborating and forming partnerships. It's about identifying who does what best, and you being sure about what you do best, and you all joining hands and joining forces so that our combined effort is greater than the sum of our parts. Any army that has infantrymen who are competing against each other has already failed to win the war. And you and I are engaged in the greatest war that has ever been waged. We are fighting for our families, our fathers, our mothers, and our children. And we don't have the time to compete. And so if we are to fulfill our collective destiny, let me mention 5 things to you. And I know I don't have time to go into them the way I'd like to. But let me just mention them to you. There are things that I learned in my time of office with the mayor in establishing the Office of Faith and Community-Based Partnerships in the city of Jacksonville. As we looked at mom and pop organizations and we looked at faith-based organizations and recognized that they have a passion for doing their work, there were some other things that they were lacking because passion alone won't get it. Did you hear what I said? Now, some of you don't have this issue because you have developed your organizational capacity to the extent that you're performing at a fairly high level. But I will say to you, after 3 years of trying things and developing models and implementing strategies, there's still much more that you can do. As you perfect and adjust your models, there's still work that you can do that will make you more effective. So the things I'm going to say to you are not new, but let me suggest them to you anyway. I call them the 5 P's of organizational success. One is passion. Say passion. Nah, you didn't hear me. Say passion. I didn't hear you. Say passion. All right. That's better. Having church now, y'all. The second element is purpose. Say purpose. The third element is preparation. Say preparation. The fourth element is performance. Say performance. And the fifth element is professionalism. Say it with professionalism. Now, having passion is not enough. Passion is the element of the human spirit that keeps you going. When everything is saying quit, your passion says, I gotta do this. But passion that is unfocused is just passion, and you end up everywhere instead of where you ought to be working. And so the second element now becomes purpose. And out of purpose, you develop a mission and a vision that is unique to your organization. Every now and then, we used to encourage our mom and pops to sit around the table with your staff and to make sure they understand what our mission is and what our vision is. How do we fit within the scheme of this thing that we call family focus and fatherhood? What is our role to play? And to specify that mission, to write it down, to write down that vision, because that will be the guiding instrument in your success. Now that you have purpose, you need to prepare. I'm going to say some things here that you may not like. Everybody in your organization doesn't belong there. Let me say it again. You can talk to me when they get outside, but let me say it again. Everybody that's on your bus doesn't belong on your bus. And some of the people that are on your bus are in the wrong seat. Some of us have people running things that got no business running nothing. Excuse my colloquialism. And so not only do you need to assimilate the tools and the resources to accomplish what you have been called to do, but you need to make sure that the people that are in your staff and in your organization are where they belong. Time out for best friends. The work that you have to do is too important for you to be trying to keep a friend by having them in a position that they can't function in. And so you assimilate your tools. What do I need to do to accomplish our mission and our vision? Now that we have assimilated our tools and gathered our tools, we need to perform. And there are a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. How do we measure our effectiveness? What are our goals? What are our outcomes? Are we busy being busy? Are we being busy getting something done? What is our end point? Are we seeing progress? How do we measure it? What are our short-term, mid-range, and long-term indicators of success? Are we wasting time, energy, human resources, marching in step, but making no progress? Is it a battle that we're going to win, or are we locked in human dysfunction? Are you connecting with people who can do what you can't do? One thing we all need to be clear of: there are things we can do, and there are things that others can do better than us. If you're trying to do what you can't do, you're wasting time and money and resources and assets. Get out of that business. Get somebody who has experience and who has experienced success and partner with them. I'll say to you again, the sum of our parts is greater than our individual capability. When it's all said and done, Can you explain to anyone in clear, concise terms what you have accomplished, and can you back it up with data? If you can't support it with data, you have wasted somebody's time, energy, and money. Professionalism. How do we look to the people who have to give us money to continue to do what we do? When they ask us how successful we have become, can we give them the stuff that they need to see that validates your existence? Very simple terms. You're all familiar with them. But unless you can answer those questions in clear, concise, definitive terms, you must ask yourself, have I wasted time? Or am I being effective in fulfilling my destiny? I've said enough, too much, too loudly. But let me finish by saying this. I wish you every success. I wish for you that every day your doors are open, that somebody walks in and says to you, thank you for helping me to do what I thought I could not do. I pray to God that He will bless you and keep you, but most of all, that He will keep you focused and energized and purposeful, so that this country, the people you serve, the nation that we believe in, and ultimately our destiny has been fulfilled. May God bless you, and may He bless every effort you set forth in bringing about true change in the most important aspect of this country, our families, our moms, our dads, and our children. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Boy, I'm even more encouraged and inspired than I was when I came in here. You guys do that to me all the time, and this has helped undergird that. I tell everybody when I go on the round tables that the most exciting time for me is engaging with you all. And I hope by what you've heard today, you've been able to experience some of that back. Thank you again, Reverend Jackson, for what you've shared with us this morning. Appreciate that. Well, speaking of hearing back, we're going to be doing that in a couple of minutes, about 10 minutes. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll be bringing the panels of some of our families, some of the individuals, some of the young people that have experienced the work that you've been doing. They're going to share back with us some of their impacts so that you can hear that they are a reflection of what you've done. So come back in 10 minutes. We'll be set up and ready to go. Thank you.